The New York Times ready to run a hit piece against James O'Keefe and O'Keefe Media Group, trying to make me a villain, violating voter privacy laws and voter intimidation laws. New York Times reporter Ken Bensinger, not to be confused with Kim Basinger, wrote me an email saying, quote, "I'm working on an article about your project to recruit election workers and poll watchers to use hidden cameras to record election sites leading up to on election day. Quote, this project could be encouraging volunteers to violate numerous state laws regarding recording at polling places, voter privacy, election interference, intimidation, and harassment of election officials, and consensual recording." But here's the thing. We literally put on X and our website not to intimidate voters. We posted what not to do to the world. Quote, don't photograph or film ballots, don't touch ballots, don't interfere with election processes, and know the law. We actually published everything citizen journalists should not do and made sure, because we spent weeks consulting with attorneys, putting together all this research, we wanted to make sure people had the information. But this New York Times reporter is implying that I'm encouraging people to do things that I'm literally discouraging them from doing. You see, that's why people in the country are so pissed off at people like you, Ken Bensinger, not to be confused with Kim Basinger, because your legacy media people, you're lying through this sort of mendacious innuendo and sophistry, trying to make 2 + 2 = 5. It's disgraceful. The email goes on. Quote, please let me know if you believe any of the information I have shared is inaccurate. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty inaccurate to accuse someone of encouraging somebody else to break the law when we took the time and did our due diligence, broadcasted to the world not to break the law. I would say your article is completely inaccurate, and consider this video my response, and I'm just getting started. You see, at OMG, we just finished a lengthy agreement with Citizen Journalism Foundation to make sure that guidelines breaking down the complicated laws, and they are complicated, and we believe they're a violation of the First Amendment, and we've litigated many of these things to the appellate courts in the Ninth Circuit, in the First Circuit, which is more than you'll ever do, because we believe in the Constitution, unlike you. See, we litigated these things, and we broke things down for everyone to know about the complicated statutes and regulations, state by state, about recording and polling place laws around the country. We made that available for all citizens free of charge. Through donors and contributors, we've spent tremendous amounts of money to make sure civic engagement in this election is at an all-time high. I recognize that you don't believe in that, but that's the American way. Something anathema to the New York Times, by the way. We'll get to more on that soon. Why on earth would I have arranged all of this if I was secretly launching a criminal enterprise? I must be the worst arch-villain ever imagined, or maybe you are and you're projecting who you are onto me. Where are the diamonds? Where are the Ferraris if I'm such an arch-villain? You see, Ken Bensinger, not to be confused with Kim Basinger, you're a disgrace to the journalism profession. You're what I call an anti-journalist. You're not a journalist, you're against journalism. Your entire reason for being is to stop journalism from occurring, to actually deter people from conducting journalism, and therefore to stop accountability and to stop transparency, to basically put a foot on the American experiment. But Ken Bensinger, not to be confused with Kim Basinger, goes on. Quote, including the question of whether your citizen journalist, he put that in quotes, volunteers could be putting themselves in legal peril by participating. You see how he put that in quotes, that condescending hubris? He looks down upon all of you. He hates you. Why? Because you're doing things that he won't or can't. The question is, which is it? I think both. See, he wishes he was you. This New York Times reporter wants to do what you do, but he can't because he works for the state. He's basically a Fed. I don't know the difference. He's trying to put all of you and me in prison if he wanted to. But there'll be more journalists than you could possibly imagine, Mr. Ken Bensinger. There'll be more journalists, and our citizen journalists are truly more journalistic than you'll ever be. But he goes on. You stated on social media that, quote, in many states it is illegal for you to record, but it is legal for me to publish so long as I play no part in the recording. Given that you proposed and promoted the idea of election workers surreptitiously filming from within polling places, solicited volunteers to reach out to you, had employees screen candidates, shipped cameras to some of them, posted resources on using hidden cameras and relevant laws in different states, and provide a form where volunteers can upload footage to your company's servers, how can you claim to have played no part in the recording? You see, that is another sly example of the innuendo and sophistry that these New York Times journalists use. Pay attention to how he did this, to how these people operate, to what they do and how they do it. First, every year, General Motors sells millions of cars. Many of those cars crash into other people. Some are used by people who are drunk or took illegal drugs. Others are used to commit crimes like bank heists. Yet, General Motors isn't liable for the unlawful use of its cars to do illegal things. In the same way, and I feel like I'm a kindergartner, by the way, saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and condescend to this New York Times reporter. In the same way, OMG took care to ask for lawful recordings and is not responsible for irresponsible use of recording equipment. That's common sense. But let me break it down for you, Ken. The ACLU launched its own app, the Mobile Justice app, to record encounters with police and upload directly to ACLU. Yet not all recording of the police is legal. Sometimes it can violate the law. But the ACLU isn't responsible when people record illegally. That is always up to the end user to act responsibly. Just the same, OMG is not responsible when people go out on a limb and do things they shouldn't. Especially when OMG has taken steps to make information available about lawful recording. And when it comes to more important things like, the First Amendment, I recognize that you don't like the First Amendment, but I'm trying to teach you. The Supreme Court allows journalists to work with inside sources to obtain critically newsworthy information for the American public. That includes doing things like making suggestions or prodding sources, like what reporters do. That investigative reportive thingy that you should be doing. And when the DNC brought suit against Donald Trump, WikiLeaks, and other actors, and the Russian Federation for unlawfully hacking into the DNC's computers, only the Russian Federation could be held liable. Remember that case? No, you don't remember. DNC versus Russian Federation, Southern District in New York. You should read it. The Russian Federation could be held liable because it participated in the theft of the data and its actors agreed to help steal electronic data. The DNC pushed hardest against WikiLeaks because it solicited the stolen items to be delivered to it for publication. But that didn't matter, nor has it mattered for any other court considering this. The only rule is that the publisher not participate in the illegal action. One can work in active collaboration with sources so long as they are not telling them to do the illegal actions. And this is what OMG and CJF has done. Oh, and by the way, we also posted on X, we are not shipping cameras to these states. You selectively edited that out of your email. Why did you edit that out of the email that you sent me? Can you explain why you doctored that? Maybe that's why you accuse me of selective editing, because that's what you do. In fact, we created an entire PDF guideline that's 18 pages long of states that we're not shipping cameras to. And we posted that everywhere. So there's no evidence to suggest OMG encouraged any illegal activity on the part of citizen journalists. Why would OMG go through all the time and expense and have a huge database of legal guides? Every indication out there shows that my company sent cameras for people to use in lawful and constitutional ways. We didn't launch a reckless program, which is what you're insinuating. Just because some places don't allow for recording or have difficult to interpret laws in place doesn't mean OMG asked people to violate the law, which is what you're insinuating. It did not. Its campaign is fully legal, and you know it. But you, Ken Bensinger, not to be confused with Kim Basinger, what you've done is disgraceful. Using coded insinuations and sophistry language and innuendo and hyperbole and deception by omission, leaving these things out in your communication with me to try to imply to the reader something that isn't true. If you don't include my response in your article, well, then you're acting in willful disregard for the truth. And I will sue the out of you for defamation. Oh, and by the way, I'm actually one of the few people to get past motion to dismiss in my defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. In fact, the only way you can stop that from happening is to get my board of directors to fire me. That's what stopped it last time, but guess what? Now I don't have a board. That means I own this company. So the only way to stop me is to kill me. You're not going to stop me, though. Because, you see, we've already sent the cameras out to people in jurisdictions where it's legal. They're in the mail, they're en route. We have fostered a movement of citizen journalism where they will be legally recording because they have the guidance. And we're going to be publishing an avalanche of these recordings in the coming days ahead, whether you like it or not. And we will work to change these laws because we are pro-First Amendment. And I recognize that you're anti-First Amendment, but I would ask that you pause and reflect on why that is the case. When you brush your teeth at night, you look in the mirror, look yourself in the face and ask yourself why a New York Times journalist is anti-First Amendment. See, what I think is you're basically like a Fed boy. Like you're like an FBI agent wannabe or like a prosecutor. But that's not a journalist. You're not supposed to be a law enforcement officer. There's a difference. And that's why you've lost the goodwill of the people. That's why they don't trust you. And that's why they don't like you. You used to report the news without fear or favor. Now it's become pathetic, and you should be ashamed. We've created this movement. We have eyes and ears everywhere, and the cameras are in the hands of the army whether you like it or not. Stay tuned. Does anyone really trust the healthcare system? Well, thankfully, there still are some good guys left in healthcare, like our great friends at The Wellness Company. The Wellness Company has been with OMG since day one, and now they're proud to introduce the ultimate first aid emergency kit, meticulously created to ensure your access to life-saving prescription medications, personal protective equipment, and other essentials by empowering you to take control of your health journey. Now you and your loved ones will be prepared for the next shortage or whatever they try to pull. My team and I have our kits with us in the field at all times. Don't get caught without the medications you need. The Wellness Company's First Aid Medical Emergency Kit can make all the difference. Order your medical emergency kit now and save 15% by using code OMG. That's twc.health/OMG. Go to twc.health/OMG. Again, that's twc.health/OMG.